Hello there YouTube, my name is Andrew, and today's video I will be continuing on part 2 of my Walt Disney dinosaur movie review that I posted part 1 yesterday, when I'm putting this one up, so yep. So pretty much where I left off, I introduced the movie and essentially Aladar his lemur family had basically just run into this herd of other dinosaurs that I forgot to mention this yesterday. The point of the herd is that they're going to what's known as the migration grounds, like basically basically a safe haven where the herd could go and reproduce, basically have their offspring and continue the herd after they died. So that's the whole point of the story, basically, is getting to these migration grounds. So yeah, Aldar ran into this group and basically he ends up having a bump in with the group leader Crone and his lieutenant, his first in command, Bruton, who is pretty much they're both very experienced in the ways of their world, in the harsh realities of traveling through the desert they're in, which is very harsh terrain, not just because it's a desert and there's no water and it's very hot, but also because of the ever present threat of carnotaurs, which basically like your T-Rex or large carnivorous dinosaur, basically. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I definitely recommend you stop watching this now and go and watch that, as you'll definitely make what I'm saying more understandable. Okay, so basically Aldar argues with Crone and Bruton about how he's treating the herd. Like they basically push the herd to be like, survival of the fittest. Like, if you fall behind, you get left behind. Nobody's gonna help you, essentially, which is how they've been raised. Basically, it's like, which, to be fair to them, is pretty much the harsh reality of what dinosaurs had to go through, unlike Aldar, who was very isolated and separate from the rest of the dinosaurs when, he made his way to the lemur island, because he never had to go through any of that. Had disaster not struck through the meteorite, he probably would have lived out his life very happy, but very un-dinosaur-like. And because of that isolation, Aladar is very compassionate to these generally considered weaker dinosaurs, and they're initially confused as to why he's helping them, because I'm pretty sure they're new to the herd as well, but like everyone they've been with has either ignored them or has just treated them badly. So they're pretty much used to, at this point, being ignored. Sorry. So yeah, basically Aldar has a run-in with Crone. Crone tells him to basically get lost and keep his mind to himself. So essentially, like, the next 5-10 minutes is just them on a journey through and a journey through the desert to... At this stage, they're just looking for the next water source, because the herd's been travelling for many months now. Well, weeks, months, however long, like, it's still a long time for any animal to go without water. We as humans wouldn't survive that amount of time, obviously, but dinosaurs, with their more sophisticated biological structures, well, not more sophisticated, like, they were able to go without water for extended periods of time, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, basically, next 5 minutes is just them going through that, and then basically where the water's supposed to be situated is on top of a hill. Basically, so you have a few moments of, everything's going to be okay, they finally found water, until they crest the top of the hill just to find that it's more desert, just more desert. There's no water. Yeah, the meteorite which strikes the mainland obviously had some effect and sent the water off somewhere else. That's never found out. You never find out where that water's gone. Just that the water's not there. So basically, it's after a few moments of elation and happiness, it's replaced by desperation. The music is essentially key to telling you what's going on in everyone's minds. Like, without the news for words, again, even if you take out the words, the music, the themes in the music really tells the story for you. So basically, Crone sends Bruton on a scouting mission to potentially find other water sources, find where the water's gone. So Bruton and another Iguanodon scout go scout out the area for water, whilst the idea is they find the water and catch up to the rest of the herd later. Tell them about the water, and whilst Crone keeps the herd moving towards the nesting ground, migration grounds, whichever you want to call it. So yeah, basically that happens, and then a few minutes later, Zinni and Aladar, Zinni, if you forget, is the teenage male lemur, womanizer, obviously. Basically they hear when Yima presses down on the sand, they hear what sounds like water, and so basically they start digging underneath where Yima's foot had been, and then get her to basically press down again, and basically this forces water that had been hidden underground into this large footprint hole. Aladar, Zinni, and the rest of the group are so excited to have finally found water that when they call Crone and the rest of the herd, they basically are forced aside by this giant stampeding herd who are so desperate for water that just they don't care who they trample, who they hurt, as long as they get to water first, or as long as they basically get water, which, to be honest, I feel as though any animal, human or otherwise, would do, because water is very much essential to us. Like, we can only us as humans can only go 3 days max without water before we die. So pretty much this is an expected reaction to everyone apart from Aladar, who again is very isolated, so he gets pretty angry with everyone pushing and shoving, but what can you do? So basically it cuts to Bruton and the scout searching for water. At this point they've long gone, there's no calling them back, say we found water. Basically they're searching the outskirts of basically the lake they used to drink at, so pretty much they get ambushed by carnotaurs, and Bruton actually fights one of the carnotaurs off. The other scout basically gets knocked up on, grabbed by the tail, and has no chance whatsoever at fighting back. And because of that, Bruton is able to recognize the danger, fight back, and escape back to the group. This is pretty much where Crone basically loses it with Bruton when Bruton catches up, and Crone realizes that the carnotaurs have basically followed Bruton back to the herd. Like, you can't see them, but you can hear them roaring in the distance, getting closer. So basically Crone cripples Bruton in a sort of, very dark, very he essentially makes it so it's not impossible for Bruton to walk, but very, very difficult. Like, he doesn't break a leg or anything, but he very much damages a couple of tendons or whatever in Bruton's front right leg, I'm pretty sure. Front right or front left. One of his front legs. So basically, that happens, and Crone essentially drives the herd on out of fear, desperation, and it's just basically, at this point, he's gone mad, he's gone insane. It's just however many he can save, and the more bodies between him and the carnotaurs, the better, honestly. So basically he drags the herd off. Aladar tries chasing after the group, but soon realizes that he would be like everyone else, just driven on by selfishness and, yes, survival instinct and fear, but at the end of the day, the movie's trying to deliver a positive message, like, don't leave the ones you care behind, don't sacrifice them. So he makes the hard and tough decision and decides to pretty much stay with his friends. Basically, like, he knows at the end of the day he's not going to survive with the rest of the herd. And this actually pays off, believe it or not. Basically, they get left behind, like, so far behind that they eventually run into injured Bruton, and because it's nighttime and it's raining, they take cover inside a cave. In a cave that has a natural waterfall at the entrance, so that would wash away their smell. So the carnotaurs, when they eventually get there, they'll be confused as to where they go, because these big meat-eating dinosaurs, whilst they were powerful in the sense they were big, they were scary and what have you, they weren't particularly smart even in real life. So if they couldn't see their food in front of them, they could be sniffing as smart at a spot, for like hours, and if they could not see their prey, they'd just eventually give up. They would. So basically, yeah, they take cover in there, and later on in the, before I go on, Aladar and his friends actually managed to break through to Bruton as to why they're being so helpful, and it's because Bruton, like everyone else, it's survival of the fittest. I don't have to care about you if you're weaker than me, basically. And it's because Bruton's been put into a position of weakness that he's never experienced that it finally dawns on him why Aladar and his friends are helping each other out and everyone else out. And so yeah, later on the carnotaurs do eventually catch up to them, but they pretty much stay out the cave searching for about five or so minutes because they can smell the after effects of when they were all outside. However, because the waterfall basically washes the stench off, and because Bruton was injured and he had been bleeding, basically like outside they could smell the blood, the semi-fresh smell of blood, and so they knew that there was an injured prey animal nearby. However, they just couldn't locate precisely where until as Aladar and pals prepare to move through the back of the cave unnoticed so they could basically escape, wait the carnotaurs out and escape. I think it's Earl who accidentally knocks a rock loose, and Aladar tries to save it. Basically, however, the rock basically ends up going out through the waterfall, and the carnotaur notices this, sniffs, looks around, and a couple of seconds later, a flash of lightning illuminates Aladar for the carnotaur to see. Finally, the carnotaurs see their prey and begin their attack. They do. Bruton actually has a moment of struggling between his old instincts of saving himself and self-preservation and acting on the new kindness that he had been shown only a couple of hours before. Eventually, as the carnotaurs were trying to drag Aladar out of the cave for consumption, Bruton makes his decision and drives the carnotaurs off in order to save Aladar, and in doing so, he ends up bringing a rock slide down on top of himself and two of the carnotaurs, which kills him and one of the carnotaurs, one of two carnotaurs. The second carnotaur was badly injured, and because it can't dig its way through a wall of rock, it basically gives up, even though it knows food's on the other side. It gives up because whilst I said it was stupid, it's not that stupid. It knows its limits. So basically it goes off, searches for something else, and Aladar and his group of family and friends are safe for the moment. They travel through this cave for what I assume would be hours. Don't quote me on that, but so basically, until they start coming towards this section of wall that they assume is just a dead end, and they assume that they're trapped and gonna have to dig their way back through the landslide until Zinni or, well, actually no, it's one of the smaller ones, Suri, who's voiced by Hayden Patches, Hayden, the girl from Racing Stripes. Sorry, I forget her last name, but yeah, I really love her in Racing Stripes. She's such a great character in all her movies that she's in. She's very, very good actress. Anyways, Suri pretty much points out that there's a spot of light coming through. There's a ray of light, small, easy to miss, but it's definitely there. And also they can smell the fresh air coming from the other side. So eagerly they start to dig through the wall. Unfortunately, they don't do it successfully, and they just end up bringing even more rocks down, which basically blocks off everything that they know. And how I know they were traveling through for a couple of hours, at least a couple of hours, was because when the carnotaurs attacked them, it was like dead of night, like probably what we would assume to be about 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And then the ray of light obviously indicates that it's early morning, like it's morning at some point. It's daytime, basically. If it had been nighttime, I doubt they would have even noticed it. But anyways, back to the movie. Back to the movie. So they bring an even larger landslide on top of them, which basically causes Aladar to have a pretty much a meltdown because he feels like he's failed his family and friends, and basically he's just like, okay, you know what, I've dealt with a lot of rubbish the last couple of days, I'm just giving in, we'll go back, we'll rejoin the herd, and we'll make it through that way. However, it's Yima's the Diplodocus, who at this point has basically been quiet, who's been like sort of timid and unsure of what they should do. It's Yima who basically tells Eldar that he's stupid for giving up, that they've come so far against, literally everyone's expectations, and the odds of them surviving what they have survived the last few days to a week, however long, is nothing short of a miracle. So basically she's not giving up, that, they could be potentially so close, and, so basically she starts knocking down the wall. The rest of them inspired by her words. I don't remember the exact quotes precisely, but anyways, the others inspired by her words actually join in and start helping her take down the wall, and they do eventually break down the wall. And again, in the music, there's a brief pause as there's a massive dust cloud from this giant wall of rock falling, and while the dust settles, it's just like, it's that pause of, did we get there? Or are we still got a ways to go, basically. Finally, when the dust clears, it's, clears into bright sunshine, and the music lifts up, and they finally made it to the nesting ground. They have. So essentially they've Yima was right not to give up. Had Aladar given up and gone back, they probably would have still gotten to the nesting grounds, probably not in one piece, but they still would have gone there pretty much regardless. Or actually, no, they wouldn't. No, as they explore the nesting grounds and after the elation of finally making it there, pretty much one of Aldo's friends pretty much says, doesn't matter when, because Aladar's at this point wondering where the herd is, like, shouldn't the herd be there by now? Like, we fell behind, we went the different way, shouldn't the herd be there by now? And one of his friends just basically, like, doesn't care. Like, they've made it after the way that she's been treated by the herd, she just simply doesn't care, and she's just like, the herd will make it, herd will get here when it gets here, essentially. And then she turns around and goes, I spoke too soon. Aladar's just like, why? What's wrong? And essentially between these two hills is this massive, what you would assume to be like cliff face of like full-on rock debris. Debris. Can't speak today, as you may have noticed, but pretty much like the way that the herd standardly went in normally. Pretty much it was like it was blocked off by another rock wall, and it's not like the rock wall they just smashed through, which had been probably the size of like I don't know, like relative size I'd say of a 1 to 2 story building, which like is nothing compared to what this rock wall was. Like, it would be essentially as high as skyscrapers in a city and that. So there's no way they're going to just bust through it, just smash through that. So, and because basically on one side there's stepping stones to the top, like you can get pretty much part of the way up before you can't go any longer. And then on the safe side with the nesting grounds, and it's just a straight drop down. So any dinosaur that made it to the top of this wall would essentially have to go back down the other way on the other side anyways. So at this point, like, it doesn't matter. Like, Aladar's route is the only route, and Aladar realizes this. He does. Aladar realizes this, and he's just like, okay, I know nobody in the herd gave a stuff about us. Chrome's gonna hate me for going back there, but I've got to tell the herd there's another way, there's a safer way, and so he basically runs back through the cave, manages to bust through the rock wall, and pretty much he has to sneak past the other carnotaur that he had a tussle with, who has found some other unsuspecting dinosaur. I'm pretty sure it's another iguanodon, although could be a different dinosaur, but movie doesn't really show that. So anyways, back to Crone and the herd. We haven't talked about them in a while, so they've pretty much gotten to the other side of the wall face that separates separates them from the nesting grounds, and they know that because the rest of the cliffs and that around them are still there. Like, they're still familiar. Like, some of them are a bit damaged probably from the meteorite and that, but it's still enough for them to know that they're pretty much there, basically. And they can't tell at this point that the wall is unscalable, that, there's no choice but to go the other way. However, Crone has pretty much gone too far. He's gone insane. He's lost his mind. And pretty much, he, at this point, doesn't care who lives, who dies, as long as he makes it to the nesting ground. And ironically, that's his undoing, pretty much. And so, yeah, like, a lot of the dinosaurs question his leadership at this point. However, without dinosaurs and her question his ideas and morals and that, but particularly his sister Nira, character I probably should have talked about a lot more in this, but anyways, that can be for another video, like, maybe if I do, like, character profiles or whatever. Like, his sister pretty much at this point knows he's insane, what have you. Pretty much alludes to trying a different way, but he doesn't listen to her, and at this point, like, she's just, like, she doesn't have any other ideas, so she's just, like, knows it's insane what her brother is proposing, knows it's suicidal, insane, but with no other ideas and what have you, she's just like, okay, whatever, we'll do it. And then next morning, because they basically pretty much reach it there as night's falling, so whilst Crone is insane and stupid, he's not that stupid to attempt climbing over the rocks in pitch darkness. So pretty much the next day, as they are moving over the rocks, that Aladar finds them. And pretty much yells at Crone that what he's doing is stupid and it's gonna kill the herd off, which his idea would, but pretty much he doesn't listen to Aladar at all. And Aladar basically has to threaten Crone's right to leadership, pretty much, of the herd. So a brief fight ensues between Crone and Aladar, which only ends after Nira intervenes and pretty much shoves her brother out of the way because she's had enough of him, basically, and she trusts Aladar enough to believe what he's saying, that he has indeed found another way, a way that's not going to kill the herd off. So basically, she shoves Crone to the side, and the herd pretty much follows Aladar, like, up this, because they're in this narrow gorge, like, they follow him half the way up until they hear this roar of a carnotaur approaching, and then the heavy footsteps, and